Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about a very important development, and that is about the Russian and NATO tussle that has been going on for quite some time, and the issue perhaps is now Ukraine. As we all know, that Crimea part of Ukraine was annexed by the Russians, and when we talk about that particular issue, obviously there was a lot of hue and cry from the Western world. But having said that, the Russians said that we had a fair and free referendum, and since majority of the people living out there, they are Russians, so they supported the idea, and Crimea became a part of Russia. Whereas Ukraine is concerned, since we all know it's a huge area, and now the Russians have warned the NATO and the US in particular that let's not include Ukraine into NATO, and let's not make it a member, and stop persuading about the ideology to get into the West. Now they have said that there's a clear-cut line. The moment if something is done, and then the consequences they'll be on the NATO and in US, on the US in particular. Now interestingly, there was the speech by none other than the Russian President, Mr. Vladimir Putin, very categorically mentioned that any step taken in favor of Ukraine in order to include or make it a member of NATO would be not tolerated. And at the same time, they said that their movement towards the West means towards the East, means the West of the Russians will not be acceptable. Now, that is something that has been going on for quite some time, but a lot of people do believe that there is a chance of a conflict, because they believe that the Russian forces are accumulating on the border of Ukraine. As we all know that you can't undermine the firepower of Russia, but whereas NATO is concerned, they have been there in the backyard of the Russians, I would say, just to put a check. Now, what could happen? What is the probability? How to sort it out? How to diffuse the tension between the Russians and the NATO members? That is what we'll be talking about. But before I introduce you to our panelists, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that.
Ongoing border crisis between Russia and Ukraine is pushing the world at the verge of a new Cold War, which can become a full-scale heated conflict and can engulf the global peace, as the United States and the NATO military bloc have dangerously become the party in this conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has already blamed the West for escalating tensions in Europe. He asserted that Russia would respond adequately to any Western aggression and would develop its army further. In this regard, Russia forwarded a highly contentious list of security guarantees in which Russia demanded ban on Ukraine for entering in NATO and limiting the deployment of troops and weapons to NATO's eastern flank and returning where they were stationed in 1997 before an eastward expansion. In his annual press conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he does not want conflict with Ukraine, but asserted that Russia have to think about ensuring its security prospects for the near future. However, according to media reports, senior White House officials declined to respond to the Russian president's core demands that NATO abandon all the military activity in the Eastern Europe and not admit Ukraine as a member, although both appear to be non-starters. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, although there had been no final agreement on diplomatic talks, the United States was working towards them and looking forward to them. Moreover, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken during a press conference said that he believes that bilateral talks with Russia over its massive troop buildup along the Ukrainian border could start in January. He also warned of massive consequences if Russia engages in any further acts of aggression against Ukraine.
Now to talk about it, we have with us in our studio. On my right is Dr. Taghril Yamin Saab, who's a senior analyst. So thank you so much for your time. And we have with us Dr. Ziaul Haq Shamsi Saab. He's the director of CAST. Thank you so much, sir, for your time as well. Taghril Saab, couple of developments that we have seen. I mean, this tussle has been going on for quite some time, and it is believed that the Western and the Russian relationship is hitting its bottom low, sir. And the Russians, they have very categorically mentioned that no compromise as far as the NATO is concerned, because NATO really wants that Ukraine should become a member, and whereas the Russians, they have said that Ukraine's membership prospects will not be accepted. Whereas Russia calls on NATO to deny Ukrainian membership, at the same time the there is a probability, sir, that we could end up hearing this announcement from the NATO countries that Ukraine is a part of their league now. What exactly is happening, sir, and what could be the prospects for that particular area, sir? Your take.
Faisal Saab, we know that the Russians have massed troops on the Ukrainian border, and they've been also flying air patrols over the border with Belarus, and these are nuclear-capable aircraft, Tu-122Ms, if I'm right.
Yes.
Okay, would these two countries go to war? Would Russia and NATO go to war? I don't think so. I mean, both are NATO as a bloc is a big bloc of 28 countries. They have the Americans have given them extended deterrence. That means that the nuclear weapons are already deployed in some of the European countries, including Turkey, which is only partly European, mostly it's Asian. So that would be a doomsday scenario. So I don't think that is going to happen. What is happening is actually Russia has realized that the Americans are probably in a very bad shape. They had a messy withdrawal out of Afghanistan. They know that they are weak. They are weak in terms that their political will is weak. They withdrew, and that led to a very bad example even within NATO. And if you recall, Trump in his time was almost bent on dismantling NATO. He was telling his European allies to fend for themselves, to increase their defense budget to
2%
no more
of
than
their
that,
GDP.
3% of their GDP, 3.3 or 3.5% of the GDP. He said, you bear the cost.
Even they were forcing Greece to buy the Rafales from the French,
right.
despite that they were going through a lot of economic crisis. Yes.
Absolutely. So NATO also knows, the European Atlantists know that the Americans are not no more a very dependable ally, because the way they left Afghanistan also left even Britain, who happens to be one of their closest allies within NATO, also was very, very upset. So there is generally a state of low morale in NATO as well. Some of the NATO allies are not on talking terms with each other. For example, Britain and France are having a bad time. They're not talking to each other. Germany has a new chancellor, so there is a change of scene. The people knew about Angela Merkel and what her policies were. So one doesn't know what Germany is going to do now. They have a new party, SPD. It's not the familiar CDU, CSU combined. It's a different party. So there is a turmoil within NATO also. NATO, the European allies are not very comfortable with the Americans, although we know that the NATO has a 25 clause. 25 means collective security. If one country is attacked, all other countries are supposed to respond to that. The last time it was invoked was by the US in the aftermath of 9/11. So problems there. Russia realizes that the US is facing a leadership crisis. The Russians have already withdrawn their mission from NATO. They had a mission in NATO, so they have withdrawn that. The Russians have been telling the Americans for a very long time that you will not move eastwards. That has been their demand from day one. You will not move eastward. But they
No more further movement.
No, but they have been moving. They have the former Soviet countries like Poland, etc. They are all in its bloc. The 30-member NATO bloc has a number of
Even countries like Latvia, Lithuania,
Baltic
Moldova.
countries, Moldova, Latvia, Estonia. They're all
Other than Belarus.
Yeah, Belarus is still with them, but Belarus has been weaponized. You see, weaponized in the sense that they have insisted that we are going to push the refugees from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and other countries into Poland. So that was the threat that the Russians were using. So Russians have withdrawn their mission from NATO. They are exerting pressure. They have already absorbed Crimea in 2014.
Exactly.
So they have the upper hand. They are posturing. Whether they'll go to war, I don't think so. They're going to go to war, but they'll keep the NATO alliance on a check, on a hold. They are not going to let Ukraine join the NATO, and also probably they'll not let Ukraine join EU as well. So this is the kind of check that the Russians are placing on it. So I don't think they're going to go to war, but this is a act of brinkmanship and a game of chicken, who blinks first, things
Who
like
blinks
that.
first? I mean,
Yeah.
that is the actual
Yeah.
point. Now, coming to you, Shamsab, now one important area is that when you talk about this particular bloc or this particular side, the Eastern Europe and the Western Russia, so this issue has been going on for quite some time. It's not something new. I mean, the Americans were trying to exert a lot of pressure, but the Russians did whatever they wanted to do in Crimea. A referendum was held, and we all know what happened after that. But now, sir, I have also been following the stories, so I learned one thing, that the Ukrainian command really wants that the Americans should come forward. United States of America should issue a statement or come forward and rescue them. They are not really concerned about the NATO members, and that is something which the Americans are trying to avoid. So that means perhaps the Americans do not really want to confront Russia directly on this particular issue, sir. And obviously one of the factor which was earlier mentioned by Mr. Tughril Yamin was their withdrawal or failure, whatever you may call it, from Afghanistan. So once the situation is developing out there, sir, Vladimir Putin has been very categorical, very, very straight, and he means business. Basically, this is what we have learned over a period of time, ever since he's been in power, that he is not going to shy away. He is going to put his foot down wherever it's needed. So where could it lead, sir?
Thank you very much, Faisal. It's a very, very interesting situation, because historically the Cold War was between two blocs. Now there is a triad. Americans are desperately looking for an enemy, and they don't have one. After their withdrawal from Afghanistan and nothing left, no country left to be ruined further in the Middle East, they have no enemy now. So in the southeast or the South China Sea, it's a Taiwan Strait crisis with China, and in the west or in the Europe, it is Ukraine with Russia. And American leadership crisis, as Yamin Saab said, is not able to cope up with the developing situation or with the evolving situation. Look at the leadership crisis in Europe also, America also, and look at the stability in Europe in the leadership of Russia and China. They have stable leaders, they have strong leaders, they have vision for their state, and they are unfolding that vision for a long period of time. Okay? They are governing their respective countries for past decade, and they have a plan for the next decade. Whereas in Europe at this time, look at the quality of leadership in Boris Johnson or Mr. Macron or Mr. Biden, and Germany's sir is already talked about. So Russians also have started to exert, knowing that at this time the leadership is weak in NATO also and in America also, and they are not coordinated with each other in a manner that they can cow down Russians who are firm in their stand, and it is Putin's red line that NATO will not move east, and he will not let Ukraine become a formal member of NATO, because if it becomes formal member of NATO, then clause 25 can be executed, and they can bring NATO forces can come next door to the Russian border, whether it is Crimea portion or in the further northeast. That is why this is developing, and I fully agree with Yamin Saab that we don't see this new Cold War turning hot, but tension will remain. And
You think the same situation is going to prevail, sir? But if it is the case, for how long?
that would depend, as he said, very rightly said, that who blinks first. I think the Russians will not blink, in my opinion. Why? Because they see it is basically the state does not blink, it is the leadership that blinks. And at this time, the leadership is the weakest link in NATO and United States. And that is what Mr. Putin is also playing, and that is what Mr. Xi is also playing in the South China Sea. both are holding their red lines and both have unequivocally warned United States.
They have issued very clear-cut statements.
Very, very clear-cut statement. These were non-existent, let's say 4 years back or 5 years back. But now they both of them individually, they come out very strong for their own areas. And that is why Americans, as you said, they are shying away. They are not coming out clear. And Ukraine knows it.
So do you believe that the Americans, they have lost their brand glory, let me say it that way,
They have.
after the exit from Afghanistan?
They have. After 20 years of war, $1.5 trillion dollars spent, and with the thousands of their own soldiers dead or wounded, and a hasty withdrawal, handing over the power after a proper agreement in Doha, 29 February 2020, to those whose leadership was either killed or taken to Guantanamo Bay.
All right. So we've also been joined in by former Ambassador Shahid M.G. Kiani Saab, senior diplomat. Kiani Saab, Assalamu alaikum ji.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again, once again.
Sir, thank you so much for your time. Sir, since we're talking about this NATO-Russia tensions in Ukraine, I mean, both my guests here, Mr. Tughral Yamin and Dr. Ziaul Haq Shamsi Saab, they say that the situation is pretty fluid out there, but it is going to remain the way it is. We cannot expect a war-like situation because when it comes to a standoff like this, I mean, the Americans, they are not directly getting involved, rather they are persuading and pushing NATO. Whereas when it comes to Russia, Vladimir Putin has been very, very straightforward, and he said that we will not accept the membership of Ukraine as a NATO member. And furthermore, if something happens, then there is a deadline, and they have accumulated a lot of military forces, and the deployment is almost complete out there. So, I mean, they're not going to take a step back. It seems that currently NATO is playing on a weaker wicket. Your take?
First, thank you very much. This reminds me of the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. If you recall, there was President Kennedy's, confronting the Soviet Union over the installation of missiles in Cuba. And then the trade-off was, naturally speaking, was in hotline. And then the Soviet leader Khrushchev at that time, agreed and dismantled the missile. But then the trade-off was that the missiles which were installed by United States and Turkey were removed. So this was because it was a trade-off in a manner that the threats to both the countries were removed. So at this time, the thing is, what is bothering the United States is that after the demise of the Soviet Union, for the next maybe 7 to 8 years, things were such that the United States did not feel any threat from the Soviet Union. The Cold War had ended. But now with President Putin's very tough leadership, in which he has raised the morale of Russia, Russia is not the Soviet Union of the 60s and 70s or 80s. But the fact is that Russia is now a very strong country. But it does not in any manner threaten US interests, I can tell you very frankly. What happens is that that Russia, which has a border not only with Ukraine, but there are a lot of commonalities in the people who make up the Ukrainian and Russian. They have culturally, language, a lot of things are there. So, and the Russians have been telling the United States for a very long time that many countries which were part of the Warsaw Pact countries and were part of the Soviet Empire now are members of NATO. So, and now they are telling the only country with which the Russians have a very close affinity is Ukraine, of which you have heard that you know it, that part of Ukraine they have already annexed. So they are telling the United States not to create problems in Ukraine. The president is now the president of Ukraine is a very pro-West country, pro-Western, and he's already applied for a membership of NATO, which membership is pending. the Russians are already telling them that this is something of which there will be no compromise. I don't think they will be going to war. I doubt it very much.
So, but what if
But the
Ukraine
stakes
is
are very
again
high.
a member of
Stakes are
NATO? Do you
very
think
high. And I
the
doubt-
West is going to actually, perhaps they'll be clearing or rather crossing that red line which the Russians have drawn, sir?
The thing is, my own opinion is that giving membership to Ukraine, NATO membership to Ukraine by the United States would be something that, as I said, you rightly, a red line will be crossed. I don't think United States would do that. This is going to linger on. This is going to be some sort of a, as I say, a threat to Russia to remain with its bounds. But I don't think Putin, I can tell you very frankly, the whole Russian people are behind Putin on this issue, because no Russian would want that a country with which they have so much in common and borders Russia should have a NATO forces because NATO forces means then they might also the American next step would be to put nuclear missiles there. Nobody would like that, and I don't think this is going to happen. But the fact is that unwarranted tension is being raised by the United States. The United States can stay without this thing because Russia is not Soviet Union of the 70s and 80s. There is no Cold War. A new Cold War need not be started. The Americans already have a problem with China over its emerging as the top global economic power. So they can stay without these things. But as they say, the major powers, the superpowers, have its own agenda. They don't consult other countries on that.
All right. Now, coming to you, Tuggal Saab, another important development. Do you think this current situation suits the West? That everybody should be on an alert, and there should be uncertainty prevailing in the region, sir?
No, I don't think so. Europe wants stability. Already the Brexit has created turmoil. Europeans did not want Brexit. And I think Britain acted erratically. As very correctly mentioned, Boris Johnson has not proven to be a good leader. Already we hear reverberations of the Christmas party, which has brought him very bad name.
Yeah, at his house.
In his house. You see, they were play acting there, and so the Europeans don't want any turmoil. Europeans are also worried because you see the Russians were supposed to provide them gas through Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and it is just about to be completed, but because of various technical and legal hitches, they couldn't do that. United States does not want Germany to buy it because then they think that the Russians are going to have leverage, political leverage.
Definitely influence over them.
But you see, the amount of gas that the Germans can have from Russia is phenomenal. I think 95 million cubic feet. Their gas expenditure or use during 2019 was something in the region of I think 55 million cubic feet. So they will get
dependency.
They will get double the gas. Europe is a cold country. Europe does not have indigenous resources, energy resources. The Germans are already thinking of becoming coal-free and nuclear-free. They want green environment, so gas suits them. So the Americans do not want that. So, but the Europeans do not want any kind of turmoil in their own country. They will produce weapons. Germany is producing, I think, third or fourth great weapon supplier to the world. They would like conflicts to be away from Europe. They do not want any conflict.
I think they have had enough during the First and the Second World War. They have realized that war is a problem.
War is a problem. They want economic progress. They would rather connect with China than fight a war with Russia. And the Russians, the Americans have problems on three fronts. They have clearly identified China as a strategic competitor in their NATO 2030 vision. They have made no bones about it. China. If you do some kind of discourse analysis, you will clearly see that their what they are looking at.
So Americans have identified two of their adversaries, China and Russia. Simple.
And they have problems in Middle East also. Although they are trying to settle the issues through the Abraham Accords, the Israelis have established their embassy in UAE, and they are going there and spending Christmas and attending their bars and all that. But still, Iran is there, which is problematic. There is Yemen, which is problematic. There is Lebanon, which is problematic. So they have problems in Middle East. They have problems with China. They're trying to contain China through AUKUS. They're trying to contain China through Quad. They are trying to contain China through trade sanctions, tariff. There's a tariff war going on.
Absolutely.
So they don't want, the Americans are, they're full, but the Europeans do not want any war. I am very clear about it. They don't want to become part of any bloc which is going to go to war.
All right. Now, Shamsi Sahab, if you remember, when the Turks shot down a jet of Russia, and right after that, we saw some very serious complications in the region. One was about the energy supply to Turkey, sir. And they said that we want to renegotiate about the pricing and everything. So there was like a lot of pressure on Turkey. Number two, the kind of support the Turks were expecting from the US in particular wasn't there, unfortunately. And then the Russians also said that no more tourism, no more Russians are going to go to Turkey. And sir, at that time, the tourism just from Russia coming into Turkey was estimated at $10 billion. So that's a lot of money. And then obviously the workforce of Turkey that is working in Russia, that through, and you know, remittances do matter in today's world. What I'm saying is, sir, that the NATO members, I'm sure, are very well aware of what happened then. So any individual act from any country being a NATO member could result into something perhaps where they will be paying the price. And remember the bomb blast right after that incident that rocked whole of the Turkey, the major cities, killing so many people, and you know, putting a lot of pressure on them, was a very clear-cut and example, and I would say that was the clear and present danger in the region, sir.
Yeah, very right. But that is where the leadership came in. I mean, Erdogan paid a visit, and it was quickly resolved, isn't it? And Russian president helped him when the coup was taking place against Erdogan.
Oh yes.
Before that, isn't it? So that is what my point is, that at this time, NATO and the US collectively is suffering from lack of strong leadership in their respective areas.
What about the level of trust deficit, sir?
They cannot, nobody can trust the US. Not the NATO, because as I said before, that US had been putting pressure on NATO to increase their share of budget into NATO's expenditure, isn't it?
Correct.
Whereas NATO was not willing to do it. All European states want is economic development and competition. They're not interested in war. They have had enough during the 20th century. And that is why the European Union was formed, that it will pursue their economic agenda peacefully. And in case there is any war on their borders, or if they are further involved, like 9/11, US forced NATO troops to join in Afghanistan, isn't it? Otherwise, they would not have started. There are many countries who only send their few engineers and few technicians and few advisors. They don't want to take part in any military operations anywhere in the world, let alone the European soil itself. And that is why, but US has a problem.
And when
this
the
time.
withdrawal took place, sir, the NATO members were not even taken into confidence by the Americans.
Yeah, and that is why NATO leadership was running around Pakistan to help them evacuate their own members, isn't it? Their military members also, and their bureaucracy also, and their contractors and civilian agents, etc., who were there at that time. And Pakistan did help a number of countries, and they acknowledged back also the effort of PIA also, and the government of Pakistan and the embassy of Pakistan in Kabul. The problem is with the US actually. Problem is US. They are lost. They are looking for an area where to enter and pacify their own people, because Congress is raising questions. They are asking Biden administration questions that why have we lost the war? For what we have spent $1.5 trillion for 20 years, the longest US war in Afghanistan. And the shame they gathered when they exited, there are questions. Saner voices are raising questions, and their leadership is unable to answer.
I think that is a very important point. Now, let's talk about the kind of engagement the Russians want to have with the NATO members, and they really want to, sort of engage and solve the issue. But perhaps solving the issue is a very, very tough task, but at least they can talk, they can sit in Geneva. That's what the proposal is all about. So let's see what sort of problems or hindrances or sort of issues are there as far as the talks are concerned. Your take, Ambassador Kiani.
Thank you very much. You have, believe what I was about to talk about. The positive thing is, this is a crisis, naturally speaking. But I can assure you one thing, that like during the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the United States, whatever the leadership was there at that time, they used to meet at different neutral places, trying to gauge each other. And that was a very positive thing, trying to understand each other. And they were able to contain the crisis whenever it took place. Now, at this time, President Biden already had a long talk with President Putin. Then mid-career, senior level officials of both Russia and the United States have already met. They have met 2 times. Now, and then their dialogues continues. Why are they having a dialogue? Both the countries are responsible countries, United States and Russia both. Their leadership knows both are nuclear armed and, massive militaries. So they understand that trying to contain the crisis will be far better than creating problems. Yes, there are issues, serious issues between the United States and Russia, especially over the issue of Ukraine. The Russian government has already sent in writing a memorandum to the United States government, telling them that these are the things on which there will be no compromise. And I can assure you once again, United States is a responsible state, like any country, and it understands. You see, after the debacle in Afghanistan, as one of our colleagues was saying, there are a lot of questions being asked in the U.S. Congress. I do not think that President Biden and his administration would do such a thing as to create more problems for itself and for the Democrat Party. I don't think they will do that. What has happened in Afghanistan, I don't think we can put all the blame on President Biden. He was somebody it was thrown on his lap, and he did what was best at that time, was to remove all the troops from Afghanistan. It was an unwinnable war, we all know. So at this time, my opinion is that the dialogue is open. They are talking to each other overtly also. This is how responsive countries behave. They would like to contain the crisis. They will be able to come to an understanding sometime as to what to do, because the world can ill afford another serious crisis of the Cuban Missile era, where the whole world was looking at it as to when such a serious crisis will explode. So I don't think so. I am quite an optimist. I tell you, the United States knows its limits. So does the Russian leadership knows where the limits are, and a compromise or an understanding will be reached, not today or even tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or sometime during the next year.
But Kiani Sahab, there's another point. I mean, the NATO's Secretary General, Mr. Stoltenberg, who was once the Prime Minister of Norway also, Mr. Stoltenberg in fact said that the alliance had received the Russian documents and noted that any dialogue with Moscow would also need to address NATO's concerns about the Russia's actions and be based on the core principles of and the documents of European security and take place in consultation with NATO's European partners, such as Ukraine. I mean, being a partner. But sir, at the same time, you know, a lot of demands have been put on the Russians, whereas there are certain very legitimate, I would say, concerns of Russia also. They should also be addressed at the same time, because sir, you can't clap with one hand. Obviously, you need both.
Yeah, see, the thing is the massing of, you know, there another very serious problem which is going on. On the eastern border of Ukraine, there is a separatist movement going on for a very long time. A lot of people have died. Thousands of people have died. Now they are being, there are allegations that they are being supported by Russia, the separatists. Now this is a serious concern to Ukraine and to the Western countries. I fully agree with you. And these are and then the annexation of part of Ukraine by Russia. I think it was, in my opinion, unprovoked. Now, when these things happen, you can't blame the West, because the Western countries or countries on the border of Russia are thinking that it is today Ukraine, tomorrow maybe another country, because Russia still considers that part wherever those countries are now independent, that this is their domain, and it would not like United States to come and intrude here. But at the same time, the Russians will have to be very careful. Amassing of troops on the border, Russians say there are no troops, but there must be troops there. They will have to, you'll have to, as they say very right, Stoltenberg, they have to address the concerns of NATO and other NATO members. So, as you said, you have to clap both the hands, you know, they have to meet their concerns, and the United States have to meet the concerns of Russia. And I said to you, a compromise, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, will be addressed. Maybe you will never know. Again, the two presidents, because of COVID, maybe they don't meet physically. They may again talk over the telephone and trying to diffuse the situation.
All right. Now, talking about the confidence building measures, Taweerul Saab, that is also something very important. The Russians, as I earlier mentioned, they have their very legitimate concerns. So who would like NATO right next to them? And at the same time, sir, you need to have some sort of a buffer zone, and Ukraine perhaps is one or was one, and God knows what is going to be the future like, but at least there has to be. Now, talking about the CBM, sir, all the pressure from the NATO has been put on the Russians, whereas there is a certain important measures that need to be taken into account by the NATO members also, sir. Do you think the NATO is fully under the influence, or rather under the umbrella of the Americans? They can't take any decision on their own, sir?
Faisal Saab, there is no split within NATO. Please let me make it very clear. There is no split within NATO. The NATO members, all of them, 29 plus US, they are on one page. There is no split. There are tremors within, but they are putting up a very brave joint face. What Jens Stoltenberg says has the American consent. He doesn't speak on behalf of the Europeans only or Turks only. He speaks on behalf of all NATO. So there is no split. Let us all be very clear about it. They are worried about the lackadaisical US leadership, but at the moment, all of us know that the Americans remain the supreme military power in the world.
Absolutely,
supreme.
there's no doubt.
The kind of armament they have, the kind of resources they have, it is not imaginable. Yes, the Chinese are coming up quickly. They are catching up. The People's Liberation Army is catching up. But at the moment, right now, at the 7th of December 2021,
as we speak,
is the most powerful nation on earth. And with its NATO allies, it remains the most powerful military alliance in the world. And NATO is right next to Russia. Poland is a neighbor of Russia. So there is no doubt they have already reached the frontiers, borders of Russia. What the Russians want, they don't want them to occupy Ukraine also. And also, let me tell you something. We have very close defense relationship with Ukraine. We import our tank technology from there. We have the tank T-80UDs, which we import from Ukraine.
Even with Belarus.
Belarus also, yes. But we also don't want any upheaval in that area from where our defense supplies are coming. So nobody wants war. Europeans don't want, Russians don't want. What the Russians want, they want the NATO to stop in its track. And they find this moment opportune to send them a warning, because they think that the Americans have got gotten a bloody nose in Afghanistan, and their leadership at the moment is wavering. But within NATO, there is no split. They are all one, and they will remain one for the
Do
foreseeable
you think
future.
so? Because you just mentioned that the NATO members and the Americans, they are like this
Yeah,
at the moment.
absolutely.
Don't you think, sir, there are a lot of concerns still brewing in their mind? Certain different ideas are cropping up there
They are,
as well.
they are.
They have some very legitimate concerns post the withdrawal of the Americans because the NATO members were not consulted, and they believe that we were a part of the deal, but you know, we were just left in a shock.
Europeans have been toying with the idea of having a separate alliance, military alliance for the Europeans. But you see, military alliances cost money, and the Europeans would much rather spend this money on their own development projects rather than pumping it all into the defense budgets. What they want to do is France, Germany, UK, they want to produce weapons and sell them. That's what they want, but they don't want a kind of alliance which comes up as an alternative to NATO. That's what I think.
Well, Shamsi Saab, another point now, that is about obviously every country has its own agenda, they have their own way to work out. Now, when you talk about this Ukrainian issue earlier, it was also mentioned by Mr. Tuhrul Yameen that there are certain rebels supported by the Russians inside, so pro-Russian element versus the anti-Russian element inside Ukraine, because the state or perhaps the government is very pro-NATO and very pro-West. Don't you think, sir, at some stage, I mean, forget about the two major militaries, attacking each other. What about a civil war-like situation, sir? What about creating a mess, creating or supporting the non-state actors there, sir? Do you think there's a high probability of that?
It can be done, because as Shai Saab mentioned that in that part of Ukraine, there are many Russians living there. They have the same culture, same language, same.
Absolutely.
Same. So maybe it's just like maybe KP and Afghanistan area, the south of Afghanistan. So that is a possibility. It can be done, but I do not think Russia will venture into that, because they do not want war. None of them want war. And that is why Russia keeps on warning the United States and the NATO that this is our red line. We don't want to have trouble here. The problem is, I would insist with the United States leadership. I very respectfully disagree with Shai Saab that Biden can be absolved of the Afghanistan mess. He was vice president for 8 years when US was there in Afghanistan. And when he became president, in his April speech to Congress, he said, I don't know why we were there in the last 1 decade. So how can he be absolved of any blame? Yes, last 4 years or.
So normally the vice presidents are never blamed. It's the president who becomes the target, unfortunately.
No,
sir.
that is all right. But he was there. He was
Nobody is
part
going
of
to talk
the.
about Mike Pence. People
was-
always pinpoint their finger towards Mr. Trump.
He was part of the inside bureaucracy of the US. I mean, he was not an outsider
he is
like
one
Trump.
of the oldest serving politicians.
That's it.
1970 till almost 50 years.
That's what I am coming at. He was not like Trump, who was an outsider, and he just went into Doha and did the agreement. No, Biden knew everything, and then once he came in, he requested for an extension of 3 months. Otherwise, by 1st May, they should have exited as per the agreement. But the extension was granted. That okay, it will take time. But the way they have gone, I don't think it will be easy for him to get away with it without reasonably giving answers to Congress and the rest of the allies. The problem at this time in Europe is of the crisis of leadership. And I think Europe knows it. But as Yameen Saab is saying, that within NATO, as a military alliance, there is no rift. So there is a difference. I mean, the difference of opinion among the political leadership and as a military alliance, that their objectives are, the stated objectives are clear, and they are all firm on that we have to be next door to Russia. They cannot
can't change
allow
your location no matter what.
They don't want redrawing like Crimea situation 2014-15. So that is their red line. But as you said that NATO also has certain responsibilities.
Sir, even then in
like
2014, the NATO members, they were really pushing the Americans and everybody, to put a check on the Russians when they held that referendum in Crimea.
that's
And
what the history.
nobody could challenge them. And it wasn't about the people supporting Vladimir Putin or Russian speaking or Russian origin people living there. I think the strategic importance of that particular area is more important. The sea, the naval bases and everything. I think that holds the key.
That is what the history of the region is.
Yeah.
I mean, when the Germans were strong, they were always heading east, isn't it? When the Russians became strong, they wanted that their west
other
should
side,
be
yeah.
clear, their south should be clear, and that is why they came into Afghanistan. And
Every
wanted
country
to,
had their own concerns. But so last 1 or 1.5 minutes, sir, coming to you. Now, another very important statement from none other than the US intelligence chief, Mr. Sullivan, says that we have the reports and that the Russians have made plans for a potential further invasion of Ukraine in early 2022. That means that we are talking about January, February, or perhaps March. Can you
Talking to me?
Yeah,
मुझे
yeah.
पूछे? You're talking
Yes,
to
sir,
me?
yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I do not know what the soothsayers are saying for 2022. I have all my doubts that Russia would cross that red line. But I want to say something to you. I'm not trying to defend President Biden, but the thing is, he was the vice president. I remember President Johnson's very famous saying about the Oval Room. He said it's a lonely room. You get all the advice, the decision has to be made by the president. You were defending the president. I don't think, maybe in the hearts of hearts, he liked what happened in Afghanistan. But I can assure you one thing, Russia is not going to cross the red line, and the Americans know where they stand. I doubt very much, and a compromise will be struck in